So it seems we've got another fairly massive Warhammer 40k release week, and this time for the Astra Militarum. Let's talk through all the new stuff with the confirmed prices. Looks like we've got some slightly cheaper Death Corps infantry as an option, the Codex heavy weapon teams and command squad, plus the new combat patrol going on individual sale, and also a new expansion book for Warhammer 40k. Hello and welcome back to Warspec Tactics, where today we're talking Astra Militarum and releases, and in this video I thought we'd take a look through the big release wave that's coming this week. 2025 has got off to a pretty busy start for Warhammer 40k. First we had the weekend of the big Krieg launch box, then the full Eldari release wave. 2 weeks after that we're getting the full Guard follow-up release with all the individual boxes, including a few things that hadn't gone on sale yet, and from what Games Workshop's timetable was saying, we've got Emperor's Children coming in the pretty near future after that. Definitely all go in the 41st millennium. This Guard release wave is going up for pre-order on Saturday the 8th of February, so full release in stores on the 22nd of February. And while we knew about a good chunk of it, there's still a few interesting things, including confirmed prices, a new infantry set, and a kind of interesting looking expansion release for Warhammer Narrative. Talking through the content of the release, first up we've got Codex Astra Militarum, plus the limited edition version, the usual dice and data cards that go along with that. There's the new combat patrol that seems to be rather maligned, with the Rough Riders Kazakin and Cadian command squad, a reboxing of the Death Corps of Krieg infantry with a 40k box set. It looks like they'll be far cheaper, but probably not including the kill team upgrade sprue. The new Death Corps of Krieg command squad and heavy weapon teams, both ones that weren't available in the big launch box when that went live, and then the individual releases that came out in the big Death Corps of Krieg army set, the artillery team, Dreir, the Death Riders and combat engineers. Plenty of stuff for the Guard there, plus as mentioned a new Crusade book for the Nachmund Gauntlet. As ever, if you were looking to pre-order or pick up any of these, I do have a bunch of discount retailer links down in the video description, which if you order anything after clicking on any of those, it does go to help support Warspec Tactics a little bit if you were buying something anyway. There's Element Games in the UK for 15% off, Gap Games in Australia for 21% off, Fenris Workshop in Canada for 10%, Wargame Portal for 15%, and Tash and Geldeep in the EU for 16%. All of those are linked down in the video description, and a massive thank you to anyone supporting the channel by picking things up via them when you do. These are the release times from Friday night to Saturday morning for those stores, generally midnight in North America, and usually sort of morning to midday for the rest of the world. I'd guess that the majority of the releases probably won't sell out, but individual stores could run out of individual items. We've certainly had a bunch of the Phoenix Lords cleared out recently for the Eldar. In any case though, talking through the releases in turn, first up we have the Crusade Nachmund Gauntlet book, which we hadn't previously had announced. It looks like this one's going to be the same price as the Codexes, so $60, £37 or €47. This one seems to be confirmation that the narrative is indeed moving to the Nachmund Gauntlet, which they had hinted at in an article a while back. They gave us a cryptic hint that something might be coming for the Nachmund Gauntlet once again in the future, so shifting the narrative back to one of the only stable passageways through the Great Rift, which has been the site for an enormous punch-up for the Imperium and Chaos for several successive bouts of narrative stuff. A lot of it centering on the world of Visualist, with Abaddon and Calgar both being committed at one point, and where it left off it sounded like a Chaos Armada was bearing down on the world of Sanguiterra and the Sanctus Wall, basically Imperial strongholds being assailed anew. Apparently this one's going to be progressing with that narrative, with Harkon Worldclaimer versus St. Celestine here, and they said they'd give us a few more details later in the week. In terms of rules updates, there's going to be Crusade rules for that war, Surgical Deep Strike mission rules, and 15 missions for Crusades, so it could be another interesting narrative expansion for those who want some extra content to run in their Crusade campaigns. It'll be interesting to see any details of this one or any other narrative progression. As well as the standard book, they also have a collector's edition one. Otherwise, moving on to the Guard stuff, first up we have the new Combat Patrol. It looks like this one's gone up very slightly in price in the USA. They've had an $168 Combat Patrol for quite a while, it now seems to be $170. Not exactly the biggest change in the world, but not exactly going in the right direction either. In any case, this is the one called Draiden's Lance, Acadian Command Squad, 2 sets of 5 Rough Riders and the squad of 10 Kazakin. Individually these cost around about £150 or $235, so equates to savings around about 31% compared with buying them separately. There is unfortunately one of the lowest points in the box currently, at $295 or so, which is pretty much joint lowest with the Adeptus Mechanicus box set now. That did seem kind of inevitable for just about any Guard set that doesn't go in on big scary tanks though. As it is, it looks like it's around about 1.8 points per dollar, so not really all that great for getting massive points on the tabletop. Fairly dismal for a 40k value set. In general, internet opinion has been pretty unpopular for this one. In a channel poll I did, 92% of people voted that it was worse than the previous one. The collection of units is pretty odd. The command squad doesn't have anything to join, and it kind of depends on you wanting quite a lot of rough riders, which some people like the aesthetic and feel of more than others. It's not really an awful expansion to a Cadian Guard army, but it doesn't really feel like a very central set of units, and looks like it's not really going to be that popular as a result. Otherwise, looks like there's an interesting rebox of the Death Corps of Krieg Infantry. Previously, these were only available in the Death Corps Veteran Kill Team box set. It now looks like there'll be a way to purchase them individually as an infantry squad, and the price on these ones are $52, £31 or €41, and that puts them as the same as the Cadian Shock Troop Infantry. That price tag is quite significantly lower than the Kill Team box set, which is $65, €55 or £42, so saving around about 20 to 25% worth of the price there. And that might be kind of annoying to find out in retrospect for all the people who've no doubt bought a whole bunch of the previous Kill Team kits. They didn't really say it in the article, which was kind of unhelpful, but my guess is that the box won't have this sprue that's pictured here, this one being a bit more of an aesthetic upgrades one and one to do a bunch of Kill Team specialists. I guess that's a mainly account for the cheaper price, plus perhaps the loss of the Kill Team tokens too. At first impressions, I guess that the box set will probably be kind of popular. The Krieg Infantry have been out of stock for some time at this point. Otherwise, for Guard new stuff, we've got the Krieg Command Squad. This one's going to be $45, £28 or €35, and that'll put it at the same as the Cadian Command Squad. As models go, this one was really quite well received, interestingly led by a Lord Commissar and his aspiring Commissar in training. And the kit does have a bunch of fun details. I think the banner bearer is really quite well done. There's a sort of medic alchemist guy, and a rather sinister floating set of servo scribes that once per game allow you to do an additional order. These seemed pretty popular when the Krieg models were announced. I'm sure that there's a fair few people looking to pick up one set at least. In game they're 65 points and do all the things you'd expect a command squad to do. Plus 1 OC for their unit, the ability to broadcast orders a long way with the Master Vox, a few special weapons and things, and given that it's a Commissar leading you get a Leadership 6, and the ability to still use orders and stratagems when battle shocked seem reasonable enough to lead some Krieg into the midfield, and they do still seem like one of the better options for infantry moving up there with their regenerating med packs. Otherwise, the other unit that hasn't been on sale yet are the Krieg heavy weapons. These are going to be $52, £31.50 or €41, so the same as the Cadian heavy weapon squad it would seem. These ones get the options of las cannons, twin heavy stubbers or Krieg heavy flamers, so not the same amount of things that the Cadians and Kaschans get. Again though, the models were fairly well received. Little individually crewed machine guns or other weapons with a blast shield rolled around on some wheels, plus a fire coordinator calling in some coordinates. In game they're currently 75 points, and they're a tiny bit tougher than regular heavy weapon squads. I'd say maybe the flamer is the most interesting profile as it's just a bit different to other stuff. D6 auto hits at strength 5, AP -1, damage 2 and ignores cover at 18 inches, plus the ability to fire on death, so you could potentially have them roll out, shoot some enemy infantry up, overwatch when they move around, and then also fire in death. Between all that you could be taking quite a chunk out of enemy stuff advancing into the midboard. For Codex Astra Militarum it's $60, £37 or €47. There's another 2 different Codex covers in circulation now, in addition to the limited one that came out in the Death Corps box. One with the Kriegsman on the cover, which I think is quite a fun Codex cover artwork, and the limited one with the Commissar. The full rules for inside of this have already been very widely known given that it was already out in the Death Corps box set, but now it means that this week it should be recommended for official tournament play and things, so it should be fun to see what people take to tournaments with new guard armies with the various different regiments. It will be fun to see which of the detachments get the most interest and the most success in game. Alongside the Codex as well, there's also the usual supporting things. The dice are blue ones with squared corners apparently. You can see one of the Astra Militarum logos pointing out on the one there. The datasheet cards are at the usual £20 or $35 or €26. They'll just have the datasheets from the Codex and none of the rules for the detachments and things. Finally, we've got the individual releases of the 4 units that were on sale in the Death Corps Krieg box set. I think out of these ones, the most people had interest in the artillery team. A pretty fun, great big crude gun with a nice wall of sandbags and the ability to equip it in 4 different ways. It seems that the pricing of this one is going to be $62, £40 or €51. I did suspect, just based on the model itself, it was probably going to be a bit more than those field ordnance batteries that came out in the 9th edition release. It does seem our prediction for this one was pretty much on point. In game they're 95 points currently, though kind of badly balanced with the different weapon profiles. The siege cannon just seems to be the good one and far better than the rest. D6 shots at strength 12, AP -2 and damage 3, and handing out a battle shock against 1 target. Some of the detachments can make them a little bit more scary, things like the Siege Regiment handing out ignored cover if it's better than the other buffs, or potentially inbuilt rerolls from Bridgehead Strike, weirdly enough. I feel like they're costed well enough to be interesting, though certainly not auto-include. For the Krieg Combat Engineers, as expected again, they're the same price as the Guard Command Squads, $45, £28 or €35. A fun update on the Krieg Elites with the sappers and mining things and all sorts of specialist gear to take out the enemy in tunnel warfare. They get their remote control mine that's borne towards the enemy on its corkscrews. In game they're either 70 points for 5 of them or 95 points for 10. They have a 4+ save, scout 6 inches forward, a fair bit of small arms to deal with lighter infantry up close, but most of their value being in their 2 special rules to throw mortal wounds around, getting a free grenade stratagem, and the remote mine goes off on a 3+ for potentially D6 mortal wounds. Overall, between all that, they feel at least fairly well balanced, easy enough to include if you want to, but definitely not the sort of ridiculous auto-include that they were when they were published at 35 points. Next up, we've got the Death Riders of Krieg, which are $62, £40 or €51, so as expected the same price as the Rough Riders there. Again, pretty fun models, and there was a lot of demand for these to be made into plastic, the sort of disturbing Krieg not horses with claws, and they had quite a generous amount come in the Deathclaw Krieg launch set, so I feel like at least a fair few people might have as many as they want already. In game, I'd say their datasheet has been given kind of underwhelming rules in the guard book. They're kind of okay against lighter infantry to maybe things like normal sized Space Marines, but struggle with things beyond that. Their special rule is a reactive move, and I feel like you really need to be getting value out of that, given their price tag is a big 70 points, weirdly more than the Rough Riders, despite the fact that the Rough Riders are kind of clearly better. I wouldn't be too surprised if they get some sort of balance updates to help them out a bit, either getting a bit cheaper or maybe adding something like the Scout keyword. Just with their profile and abilities, they feel like the sort of units that might be paying a premium for Scout, but it's not on their datasheets. Finally, we've got Lord Marshal Dreir, the new special character to lead the Death Riders into battle. It seems that he is $60, £37 or €47. As it goes, that puts him really quite expensive for a special character, a bit more than I would have guessed to be honest, slightly higher than the Chaplain on Bike, and only a little bit less than Lord Solar Leontus. I feel like given that he was present in a whole bunch of Deathcore Krieg box sets that shipped out, a lot of people who wanted him already do have him, and currently at least in the UK it looks like his prices for being sold individually online on things like eBay seem to be lower than this cost, so if you desperately wanted to pick him up at some stage, then it might not be the worst idea to buy on eBay or similar in the near future, rather than this price that he will be sold at. In game again, he has had kind of unfortunate rules really, not really the worst datasheet in the world, with a devastating wounds on the charge for his Death Riders, 3 orders to regiment units and the ability to get up on death. The main issue is his points cost though, which is just spectacularly overcosted at 100. Again, I kind of hope that it'd go down fairly significantly from there. I feel more like 80 or less feels like it's more appropriate for his abilities. In any case, it's certainly looking like a big release week overall for Warhammer 40k. Let me know what you make of the Guard individual releases and whether or not you'd be tempted to pick up any of them. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on the models and the prices down in the comments. As mentioned, feel free to check out any of the channel's affiliate discount retailers linked down in the video description if you were going to pick something up. As always, a big thank you to anyone supporting via those. I'll leave this one for now there though. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll hopefully cycle back to these guys later in the week to take a look through some trends as to what people might buy or leave on the shelf. It'll also be fun to take a look through that Nachmund expansion when Games Workshop gives us a few more details there. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well. Feel free to check that out, links down in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these coming. Channel patrons also get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case though, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.